This worksheet is on simplifying radicals. I'm going to be doing things a little bit different. Here are the rules. So in order to simplify a radical, you have to break apart the number inside the radical. If it is a negative number, for example, number 2 and number 3, there is a negative, you have to take out an I because the square root of -1 is I. For number 1, though, it is not negative. So what you have to do is break it up into all of its prime factorization numbers. So 40, you can just do like a little factor tree. 40 is pick any two numbers that you know. So for example, 10 times 4. And 10 is 5 times 2. 4 is 2 times 2. I can't break up any of the other numbers. So right now I have 5 and 3 2s, which is what they wrote down on step 1. Then I see a pair. So I see a pair of 2s. This pair is what's circled right here. So imagine that the square root is your house and then someone it paired up. What do pairs do? They normally get married and they move out. And when you get married, 2 become 1. So this pair, once it comes out of the house, it becomes 1. And who is left inside the house are all the single people, the 2 and the 5 left over. So this 2 and this 5 that didn't pair up with anybody, they still stay in the house. The 2 gets brought back down, and 2 and 5, you just multiply it back together and leave it as the square root of 10. And that's how you do example 1. For example 2, I'm going to give myself some space here. Negative 98 is negative, so I already know it's going to be the square root of -1 and then 98. The square root of -1 is I, so just automatically know that you're going to have I in your final answer. 98 is, well, it is 49 times 2. The only reason why I knew that is because it's even, and even numbers are divisible by 2. So you can break it up as 49 times 2. 49 is 7 times 7. All right, so I have my prime factors. I have the -1 and then 2, 7, 7. The square root of -1 is I. And my pair that get married and move out of the house is the pair of 7s. Once they go out, the 2 become 1. So I have 1, 7. Inside the house are all the single people, which is just the 2. And that would be my final answer. For number 3, I have the square root of -500. It doesn't matter how you break up 500, but I see 500 as 5 times 100. 100 is 10 times 10. 10 is 2 times 5, 2 times 5. So these are all the prime factors. It's kind of hard to group them up together here in the factor tree because they're not really like right next to each other. So if you have to, you would rewrite all of the factors starting with the small numbers. So I have a 2 and a 2. So that's what they wrote right here, 2 and 2, a 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Doesn't matter which pair you pair up, as long as you pick 2 that go together. So like this 2 and this 2 would go together. Maybe this 5 and this 5 would go together. But it looks a lot neater right here where they're just all written out. All of the pairs come out of that big square root sign. So once you find a pair, you marry them and they leave the house. So the pair of 2s come out and 2 become 1. And these 2, this pair comes out and these 2 come out of the house and they become 1. The square root of -1 is I, so we have 2 times 5, I. And then who's left inside the square root is the single people, and that was just the 5. 2 times 5, you can simplify and multiply it back together to 10. So your final answer is 10I root 5. The rest of the problems you're doing on your own. You can either use that same method that I just did right now, or you can use the method that I used before where you're just breaking up the square roots into 2 multiples, where one of them has to be a perfect square.